Welcome back to another episode of 31 Days, 31 Proverbs, a series covering all 31 Proverbs this month. Today we'll be in Proverbs 13, where we'll cover many themes that we've covered before, like discipline, instruction, and even some parenting. But before we start today, I want you to think about choices. The average adult makes about 30,000 decisions every single day. There's a concept that categorizes these everyday decisions into three groups: hat decisions, haircut decisions, or tattoo decisions. Some decisions are like haircuts. You can try some on, you can take it off, you can get a different one, you can try an old one, a new one, a different color, whatever. Most of us in our young adult lives are in that stage right now where the majority of our decisions are hat decisions. We're trying new things, exploring ourselves, seeing what we like or what we don't, etc., etc. These decisions are easy to change. Some decisions are like haircuts. They're a bit more long term. It calls for a bit more intentionality. Trying something new requires a bit more risk taking, and it might have bigger implications or consequences than a hat decision. But in the end, you can always fix a bad haircut. And then some decisions are like tattoos. They're permanent. Once you make them, you have to live with them. They're pretty much irreversible. These decisions leave a mark for better or for worse. And so I want to pose a question for you, knowing this. When you look at the decisions people make, what do you think truly separates a life filled with lasting joy and success from a life that constantly ends in disaster? I'll repeat that again. When you look at the decisions people make, what do you think truly separates a life filled with lasting joy and success from a life that constantly ends in disaster? Our proverb today, Proverbs 13, might answer this question for you. Verse 21: Disaster pursues sinners, but the righteous are rewarded with good. Verse 9: The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. The light or the lamp in this verse refers to a person's joy, energy, and visible success in life, all of which the righteous rejoice in. Proverbs calls us towards decisions that please and honor God, which therefore is the life that is most fulfilling for us and a life that we can rejoice in. We will see those decisions lived out in these proverbs through how we talk, what we listen to, how we view money, and how we choose to parent. And so let's go through each of these sections and see how that can help us make wiser decisions. So, this first section I want to go over is what goes in and out of our mouths. What goes in and out of our mouths. Verse 2 to 6: From the fruit of his mouth a man eats what is good, but the desire of the treacherous is for violence. Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. The righteous hates falsehood, but the wicked brings shame and disgrace. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but sin overthrows the wicked. The mouth is highlighted in this section. Let's key in on some of those highlights. Verse 2, I'll say it again. From the fruit of his mouth, a man eats what is good, but the desire of the treacherous is for violence. This relates to both speech and desire. Verse 3: Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. This is speaking rashly. Speaking rashly is more than just a lack of carelessness, but I guess what this verse is trying to say is that words expose. The Hebrew word here is often used for sexual promiscuity, for exposing things that should be kept covered. Impulsive talk refers to how our words can reveal the deepest recesses of the heart. So while foolish speech can harm us inwardly, It also harms us outwardly, exposing us to the world. Verse 6, righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but sin overthrows the wicked. Guarding the mouth protects the heart from being further confirmed in sin. What we decide to do with our mouths is important. They can have hat, haircut, or even tattoo level consequences. This chapter carves out a small section to get us thinking about money, and from that, we'll see how it can also inform our decisions. That'll be our next section, money. Life is sometimes paradoxical. I say that meaning there's burdens to being rich and poor. Firstly, there's a burden of poverty. Verse 23, the fallow ground of the poor would yield much food, but it is swept away through injustice. Poverty can be caused by unjust social structures. Some are poor because of their circumstances or because of injustice. They're poor because of someone else's sin. This is what we call a righteous poverty. It's not their fault. Verse 7, one pretends to be rich yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor yet has great wealth. This verse also cautions against trying to be something you're not. Pretending to be rich can actually make you poor. So just be honest about the person you are, for in that you will be rich. Rich in character, rich in Christ. That's what matters here. Verse 8, the ransom of a man's life is in his wealth, but a poor man hears no threat. There's a burden of wealth as well. One way of looking at this proverb is that, having wealth can be good for paying debts or ransoms. But another way of looking at it is that the wealthy are subject to the dangers to which a poor man offers too small of a target. The wealthy have stresses and burdens that others just don't have. Gift requests, investments, maintaining, managing money, cautiousness towards, quote unquote friends. Living life with money arguably requires greater faith and dependence on God. All that to say, Proverb still calls us to work hard. If we jump back to verse 4, it says, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. For the lazy, wisdom is always tomorrow's plan. Wisdom will always be your future and never your present. Laziness leads to emptiness. It says the lazy pay the cost of an empty soul for temporary comfort. It doesn't get you what you want in life, and it definitely doesn't get you any closer to God. Then this next verse gives great advice about the pace of work and wealth. Verse 11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. If you don't grow your wealth through diligence, vigilance, skillfulness, you may not have grown the character and or habits necessary to manage the money well. To which much is given, much will be required. This proverb suggests that it's better for wealth to be gained slowly so that the character that greater assets require grows along with your wealth. Wisdom's pace is slow. One of the greatest obstacles in becoming wise is literally our inability to wait for it. This next section I want to cover is a big topic that continues to be repeated over and over again. And Proverbs has been saying this from the very beginning. So it must be important. Wise decisions are made when ears are inclined to wise instruction. Wise decisions are made when ears are inclined to wise instruction. Verse 1, a wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. I feel like every chapter we've covered thus far starts with something like this. And that's because, we tend to doze off thinking we're too good for the instruction that wisdom has to offer. Verse 17, a wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful envoy brings healing. Messengers played an important role in ancient times. In our modern culture of fake news, social media, and AI, it is difficult to tell what's trustworthy or not. and it is even more difficult to tell what is wisdom and what's not. So it's important to be aware if we are being misinformed or even uninformed. Search the truth. Verse 13 to 16, whoever despises the word brings destruction on himself, but he who reveres the commandment will be rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a foundation of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. Good sense wins favor, but the way of the treacherous is their ruin. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. The fool is not just uninformed, the fool is unchanged by what they know. Verse 18, poverty and disgrace come to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. Pride is at the center of why fools don't want to change. The irony is that pride, which hates correction, inevitably leads to public failures that brings more shame. Human arrogance brings about its own greatest nightmare. Verse 20, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Who are the ones surrounding you? I often like to ask people, who would be your groomsmen or your bridesmaids? 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Letting go of your pride and having a faithful support system around you that loves and corrects you is foundational in your walk with God. It's essential if you want to become wise. The first step in receiving help is admitting that you need help. And in this last section, we see that walking in wise decisions includes prudence to care for children. This last section shows us ways we can do that. Verse 22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. So one way that we can do this is providing for their present and future needs. That's what all good parents should do. Verse 24, whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Parents show care by providing moral discipline. While parenting requires far more than discipline, it never requires less. The rod here represents authority. It says, whoever spares the rod hates his son. Parents need to act on loving authority. Parenting can be hard, not just on the children, but also the parents. For example, when punished, children will, instinctively just be like, Mom, Dad, you hate me so much. You don't love me because you're punishing me, this and that. But Proverbs warns us that to not discipline is to hate them, and to discipline is to love them. Child discipline also demands parental discipline as well. It is easy to punish in anger rather than love. The correction needs to be faithful to include the cross at all times. Verse 25, the righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want. Parents should exhibit faith in their children. Children don't need parents to be Jesus in as much as they need them to need Jesus. Decisions are important, whether they are small hat decisions, temporary haircut decisions, or drastic tattoo decisions. Proverbs 13 tells us to make wise decisions about what we say, who we end up listening to, how we handle our money or lack thereof, how we decide to raise our children. But I think, at the core of decision making is what we want. What do you desire? Verse 19. A desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. Verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. At the core of the human heart are not just our emotions, but all of our hopes. When something we long for is deferred or delayed, we become heartsick. It's wise to recognize that the condition of this kind of delayed or deferred hope is one that can honestly never be fully remedied in this life. Hebrews 11:13 to 14 says, these all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. The proverb is saying that when longings are fulfilled, life flourishes only briefly. The New Testament tells us we will know full satisfaction only in the new heavens and new earth, which will be ours not through our own efforts, but through the work of Christ. Revelation 22:2 says, through the middle of the street of the city, also on either side of the river, the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. His cross became a tree of death for him so that we could have the tree of life by faith. There is now and then. There's life now and then, forever and ever. May this encourage you to want more of him. If you want him, you got him. And his love is what empowers us through his spirit to make wise decisions. Hats, haircuts, tattoos, and all. I will see you guys tomorrow. Jesus loves you. Adios.